So this is episode 2 of Rory's Table Tennis Topics. I'm your host, Rory Scott, coach at Horsham Spinners Table Tennis Club. And I've got 3 new guests on the show today. We've got Joe Cope, who's the joint England #1 junior. We've got Dave Cochrane, who is competition manager, international referee, I believe.
National referee.
Sorry, national referee. And we've got Vidal Graham, who is the head coach at Grantham. So we've got a topic kind of for each of them, which they're going to talk about. And then we'll have some chances for the panelists to comment or ask questions. So I'm going to start with Joe. And Joe's topic is training full-time and going professional. So, Joe, would you like to just explain a bit about your situation, what you're doing at the moment, and what your goals are and so on?
Yeah. At the moment, I'm living full-time in Denmark at a club called B75. Now, as of today, I've been abroad for 3 years. I lived in Sweden my first year, and then I moved to B75 last year. And I play in the top division here. I also, next year, I'm playing championship for Bats.
In England?
I think,
yeah,
in England, yeah. And I think this year, my main goal is to kind of bridge the gap between the top boys and the next person in line. I want to be that next person in line. And I think that's my goal for this year, to put myself on the senior circuit, because now I'm out of juniors.
So are you staying in Denmark or are you coming back to England then?
Next year I will be staying in Denmark, but I will be travelling back and forth from England like I did last year. And I think it will be the same where I go to Grantham and work with Vidal when I am home, like before national championships. And that's normally what I do when I am home. I go to Grantham and practice there.
And how long do you think you'll be staying in Denmark training there at B75?
Well, it depends really, because if I do get to a level where I can start playing in Germany and France, then of course I will go and play at that level. But if I'm happy here and I'm playing well here, then I don't see a point in changing. So it depends on what happens in the future really.
Okay, so I've got a few questions. How many hours a week do you train?
I mean, we have set starting times. So normally in the morning we start at 10 and at the night we start at 6. But normally they give you preference. So the coach here is Oscar Perman, one of the Swedish international juniors, and now he's a coach here. And I mean, his rule is quality over quantity. So if you have a good quality hour and then you're tired, he'll say, okay, go take some rest. And then, so it really depends. But I think normally,
on average, what would you do, you think?
16 to 28, depending on what we're working for.
A lot. Yeah. And you just kind of decide yourself if you think you need to stop, or the coach decides as well?
Yeah, and also if you're preparing for a tournament, you'll tend to find that goes up quite a bit in the weeks coming up, but then the week before, it's more about the quality practice. So that's when you tend to find that it does go down in hours.
And the really good thing at the moment is that you're still able to practice in lockdown. I mean, presumably you weren't for some time, but I mean, when did you stop and start back again?
I think I came back here the week after Nationals, so we were on lockdown for about 4 weeks before we could start playing again. But then we were allowed to play once a day, and now Denmark's quite safe, so we are allowed to open up, but with a lot of precautions, like we have to clean the tables, always use hand sanitizer and all this, but it's nice to be able to practice again.
Different balls when you're serving compared to when the other person's serving, or not?
Yeah, we have 5 balls each with our initials on. Only you're allowed to touch those balls, and so that it's safe.
And you stay the same end, or you stay the same partner for each session, or how does that work?
Yeah, same end, same partner.
Yeah. And so, like, how do you compare in standard to the players you're mostly practicing with? Are they at higher level, similar, or a bit below, or a mixture?
Then Me or in
Yeah,
England?
compared to
Than
you,
me.
the people you're practicing with.
I'd say right now I probably would be second best to Oscar
Yeah,
because people are stuck in countries that they were before
right,
lockdown. But normally when everyone's here, I'd say I'm probably about seventh best.
right.
It's
And
quite high quality.
how many players are in the squad or the
We
training
have
group?
3 teams, so the top team is 7 players in the squad,
Yeah,
and then after that it's whoever lives here. Or we have a couple of one French boy, um, and then a load of English and some Danish people that come and play. So the squad's quite big. I'd say anywhere from 24 to 30.
and you're
Got
in
a
the
squad
top
there.
team, did you say?
Yeah, I play in the top division.
Yeah. And have you got a national ranking in Denmark, whether junior or senior or both?
Yeah, I think I was number 2 last time I checked.
The juniors.
Daniel Simonson's number 1, yeah, in juniors.
Yeah.
I can't remember my senior one or my under 21. I just remember being told that I was 2.
Right. Very good. Very good. Now, in terms of the kind of finance towards what you're doing, I mean, are you paying for the training, or they're paying you, or it's just kind of,
I mean,
evens out?
here they're paying me to train and live here.
Yeah.
But when I first moved abroad, I paid for everything.
Right.
My rent, my practice, my food. But here we have quite a good system. We get paid to play, but then we also have sponsors that give us food. And then, okay, we might have to buy bits here and there, but it's quite a good setup.
So it kind of works out like you're not like earning a lot of money, I guess, but you're earning enough to kind of keep going and
Enough to eat and be healthy for the month. Each
yeah,
month I
yeah.
get paid.
So yeah, because there's a lot of players who would actually presumably love to be in your position where they can just play table tennis twice a day, every day, and yeah, it's important that they're able to kind of finance themselves. But you reckon so at the beginning they might have to pay for things, and then maybe when they get to a better
I
level.
mean, if you go abroad, you've got to make a name for yourself. So in the
Yeah,
beginning, of course, you need to pay. I mean, Paul did, Pitchford did. Everyone that's went abroad has paid. It's
yeah,
normal. But then
yeah.
you get to a level where, okay, a club wants to sign you, so now they pay you.
Was
And then,
B75 the first club that you went to abroad to train in, or
no, I moved to a club called Sherpen in Sweden.
right?
Uh, a lot of English players have been there, like Danny Reed, George Downing. A Welsh player, Lydia John, was there from Grantham.
Right.
And that's the club where I paid. But then I had a Swedish league team that'd pay for my travel and food and stuff for the weekend. The Swedish league.
Yeah. So, in your club at the moment, B75, is there just one coach to all the players, or are there extra coaches? Or
For the top team is Oscar. Oscar
yeah,
is here with us 24/7 pretty much. And
yeah,
even when in lockdown, he was with us, even though he was in Sweden.
yeah,
But now he is back here and working full time with us. But I mean, a lot of the players have their own coaches at home,
yeah.
so
So,
that's
does the
a
second team have its own coach, or is it still Oscar coaching the second and third teams? Or
the second and third team they have kind of like 2 coaches. There was Klaus, who is a
yeah,
volunteer coach, and then Oscar.
yeah, I've met Klaus actually, yeah, in Denmark. Yeah. Okay. And what are your kind of goals, aspirations, targets in terms of your table tennis kind of career?
I mean, I don't really do big term goals. I look at it seasonally
Yeah,
a lot of the time, and I think for this season it's under 21 champion. I think
yeah,
that's definitely on the table, and then also to put my name into the senior team, even if it's as okay, if someone gets injured, we've got Joe there as backup. I
yeah.
think this year I want to really push for that, and whether that's beating one of them at nationals or getting good results in a senior open, I've just got to do what I've got to do to put myself there.
Yeah. Now, where would you see yourself ideally in 5 years' time? I mean, this is probably a very difficult question, but what would your kind of goal to be in 5 years' time? You must have thought about it.
Yeah, I mean everyone's dreamed of it.
Yeah.
Olympic medals, world champion. But I think for me, the main thing is winning for England. I want people to look at me and think, right, I want to be doing what he's doing for England.
So you want to be a professional table tennis player, presumably?
Yeah, and I want to win and represent England on any stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, are you considered already a professional table tennis player, or do you have to get to the next level before calling yourself that, or how does it work?
I mean, technically, I would be a professional because I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
But I kind of see myself more as a semi-pro right now because I'm not producing the results abroad. But hopefully this year I can look at myself as professional.
Yeah, yeah. The new hairstyle will probably help you with that. Intimidating.
Yeah, that needs cutting. It needs cutting off to become a professional.
Yeah.
Let's see if I got any other questions. I think I've used up all my questions. Is that Dave or Vida? Any comments or questions for Joe?
No, for me, it's just more of a statement. I think Joe is sort of like, I've worked with him in the hall. He's unbelievably hardworking, great ethos. He carries himself quite well, you know, and he's technically one of the best juniors in the country at the moment. And I've got no doubt that he's going to end up playing for like the England senior team at some point, you know, hopefully sooner rather than later, you know, but I mean, he's got so much potential and he's putting himself, as some juniors I think now should be doing, you know, putting himself out there, getting himself into those situations that are slightly uncomfortable at the start, but you know, but he's going to make great progressions from that, you know. Yeah, he's doing great stuff, you know.
One of the things that came up on the Pitch and Paul show, where they're discussing like who they would put on the senior team if, say, Paul and Liam got injured. They went down to as far as the number 5, Dave Macbeth, and then they were like, who would we put into the senior team after that? And actually, there was pretty much a consensus that between 5 and 10, maybe in England, they weren't sure that they'd put any of those on the team. And they were actually, I think they all came to the conclusion that they'd be looking towards the juniors for the future. So hopefully players like Joe, who's training full time, would be getting these opportunities to, mix it with the top players in England, the men's team. So, I think the opportunities are there. Just need to keep working hard, Joe, and keep doing what you're doing. And I'm sure you get there within year or two or more. See how it goes.
Yeah, just on that as well. I mean, I took a quick stab at sort of like the world rankings. Joe's actually ranked the same place as David Macbeth as well.
Excellent. Very good. Very good.
Oh, yeah. There you go, mate. So you're in the right place. You're getting there. So.
One more question, Joe. Are you playing international senior tournaments or have you played junior ones, or how does that work?
This year I really focused on junior, with this being my last year. I really wanted to get into the Europeans.
Yeah.
I mean, I did okay. The Swedish Open was probably my best one. Competed with a couple of the Japanese boys, played a couple of good games. But next
European
year I will.
Ranking or world ranking in juniors, or how far did you get?
I really don't know. I tend to just focus on what I'm doing. I don't really look at these things because it's a distraction at the end of the day. You look at it and you think, well, that's bad. When now I just play.
But different people have different ways. Some people find it motivating, others find it demotivating. Yeah. And do you plan playing some senior international tournaments in this coming season?
Yeah, me and Luke Saville have discussed that next year we will be trying to play a couple more senior opens to put ourselves out there, and hopefully we will and get some results.
So he's another senior player who's practicing in B75 full time, right? Yeah. He's come up through the ranks in England. Yeah. Good. Well, that's a very interesting topic there, Joe. Thank you very much. Stay on there. We'll go on to the second topic, which is with Dave Cochrane, competition manager. So would you like to just kind of give us a kind of a rundown of maybe start from where how you got into umpiring, refereeing, and then competition manager, and go from there, Dave?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, basically, when I first sort of got involved in what I call proper table tennis, like outside the local league, sort of, like events that are on the circuit, what it was is I first got involved with coaching. And then as I got involved in that and started going to one or two events, I just wanted to get more involved. I thought, so I saw Peter Lumpine. I thought, oh yeah, I think I can do that. I'll give that a try. And then a bit further down the line, I wanted to, I thought, I want to organise my own tournament. Okay, so I did the tournament organiser course, and I thought, okay, well, we'll get involved with refereeing. I just wanted to do everything. I soon realised further down the line that you've only got one pair of hands and you can't do everything. So further down the line, I just stuck to events that is either umpiring, organising, or refereeing. In the earlier days of the umpiring. When I went to the senior nationals just as a spectator, and I saw the umpires and thought, I wouldn't mind sort of moving further up the ladder. For me, it was I was quite lucky because I was considered young in the sort of umpiring terms. I was only in my mid-20s. The association back then, the English Table Tennis Association, was very keen to sort of push me to progress. You see, because all the, back then a lot of the umpires were sort of older, much older. So they were quite keen for me to progress. So what it was is I passed my county umpire in the year 2000. And then I took my national umpire in 2002, and I passed that. And then did the international 2004, 2 years after that. Which is basically the quickest you can do it. And I was very, very keen to get it in. Like, for example, loads of people was always saying to me, most people fail the national umpire the first time they take it. So I thought, well, I don't want to be that person. When I was actually taking my national umpire in 2002, I was also in the middle of doing the tournament referee paper at the same time. So that, to be honest, really, really helped me, because as a referee, you have to know the rules a lot more in depth, because you are the final arbiter on rule interpretation. So when I did the national umpire exam, I actually found it reasonably easy, to be honest with you, because I've really, really studied good and proper, on the laws and regulations to make sure I passed, and I did do so. I was very pleased. It's good, just moving up the ranks quite steadily.
Just on that, Dave. I've been involved in table tennis like 28 years. I did the umpiring qualification, the referee qualification. I went for the national umpire as well. I passed all the practical at the national championships, all that, passed the written paper. Then they had this kind of interview afterwards, which I didn't pass. So, and they've actually got rid of that now more recently. But because of that, I didn't pass, and I haven't pursued it since. Same with the national referee paper. I think it was similar. I passed the written and didn't get through the interview section because they ask you some kind of awkward questions. And again, I haven't really pursued it since then. But yeah, so you can continue on. What happened after that with your? So you became a referee.
Yeah. So in the what I found, which was a bit earlier on, from the refereeing point of view, it was very, very frustrating because as well as like running, I've just run a handful of small junior tournaments at the sure you all remember the Hindburn Table Tennis Centre at Accrington, when these type things like British League and stuff like that there. So what it was is I wanted to get more involved in other tournaments out there, and I couldn't get in. I couldn't get on anything because everybody out there, as they do every year, they use the same people. So why are they going to replace someone and bring me in? So for about 2 years, I did very little, to be honest, out there, and I basically in the end I actually ended up sending an email to. So I can't remember who it was someone in Table Tennis England. I said, well, you know what, you might as well forget this referee qualification because I can't get on anything. So I've clearly wasted my time. So then a few emails went round, and they managed to they saw my point, and they did I'm sure you Vidal and Rory will remember the legend Kenny Armstrong from Liverpool, the referee. Ken Armstrong was an excellent referee, and with me being a Lancashire umpire, and a new tournament referee, he managed to get me in on some Grand Prix as starting off as a referee's assistant, which is like the third man on the desk, and then after doing a few of those. And some 4-stars with because back then like they used to have the Blackpool and the Liverpool every year, so they got me in both of those. As the third man, and then after a little while, they basically progressed me to deputy referee, and then what Kenny Armstrong did is he got me to run the Liverpool 4-star. Although he was the referee, he took a huge back seat. I did the draw, the schedule, and everything, and I ran it to sort of get the experience. That was at Greenbank in Liverpool. It's all about just having that help. And there is a lot more of that happening now. Didn't used to do so much then, so there is a lot of mentoring. There is a big push on getting referees involved now because the people always go on about the shortage of umpires. Believe they me, there's a much bigger shortage of referees. It's a lot worse.
I've got a slight question on that, Dave, if you don't mind as well.
Yeah.
Is like myself and Rory, we're both tournament organisers as well, but that's like that TO2.
Yeah.
Is there like a qualification? I know you get the TO3s and TO4.
Yeah.
Qualifications to actually that I can apply to do. Is there a way of getting those TO3s or TO4s, or how do you go about moving up?
I've been trying to get on a TO3 course for the last 10 years, and they've not run any. I mean, I've had the TO2 at least 10 years, and I haven't seen anything.
So does that mean you just get given that qualification if they think you're ready? Or?
I don't think so. I think you've got to do a course. I think.
Well, what happened on that was I did my TO2 in 2002, I think it was, or maybe 2001. It was at Grantham College, funny enough. Harvey Webb ran it, and there was me, Matt Morris, and Matt Porter, and someone else. Yeah, and obviously Matt Morris and Matt Porter eventually further down the line they went to obviously work for the association in the events department as national events officers. But for me, I had exactly the same problem. I wanted to progress to TO3, and I kept on emailing them every single year, up until about 2 years ago. When's the next TO3 course? Oh, yeah, it's in the pipeline. It's just always on the never.
Always in the pipeline.
Yeah, always in the pipeline. So there's a kind of a few reasons behind that. First of all, they needed to sort of redo the course and what have you, but there weren't that many people sort of that were higher qualified. I think that could help with teaching it. So there's just lots of difficulties, but so quite simply what happened was, I eventually got further down the line. I got more involved in the concentrating more on the para table tennis side of things, and Goraz Sveko, who's the performance director, well he's also the ITTF tournament manager for ITTF tournament officer for the para table tennis. He did that for quite a long time. He's like the Yoda of para table tennis. He knows everything and very, very highly respected. A bit like your Richard Scruton of table tennis, very highly respected in the para table tennis world. And he got me involved, or more involved in the para table tennis abroad, because he liked what I did over here, with the para table tennis. So what it was, eventually I became what's called a technical delegate, which in para table tennis terms was just another name for the competition manager. But this year they changed the name for the role of technical delegate, and they've called it competition manager now. And there's a few different bits extra involved now. So, for example, I'm also involved in when I did the Polish Open earlier on in the year, the Polish Para Open. I actually did the draw and the schedule as well, with the referees that sat next to me. That was the first time I'd done it. It was quite scary actually, because I'm thinking, oh God, don't make a mistake,
Did you get the TO3 qualification in the end?
Well, what happened was, so after again asking, numerous times, because I said to him, look, I find it really funny that I'm allowed to run, I'm the one. But back then, I was running the national championships over here for the para table tennis. I'm abroad doing stuff. you won't even let me organise a 4-star over here. So that's crazy. So eventually, they actually gave me a TO4. Based on because of what I do internationally, so they say bypass the 3. I said, well, you know what, you're actually a TO4 because of you being a competition manager internationally. So I'm a TO4 now.
They're going to run out of TO3s and TO4s, but they haven't run these courses unless they give them out to people like yourself. But for example, I've been wanting to do it, like I said, for 10 years. Vidal's in this similar situation. I mean, I think we need to get it sorted.
Yeah,
that's your next step, Joe, as well. You're going to end up becoming a referee, Joe.
No, man, I'm retiring in Hawaii. No touching
for some people, I mean,
from my point of view
Jackson,
as well,
for example, because he's been heavily involved, like with organising like the Blackpool Grand Prix and the Blackpool 4-star stuff like that, and got years and years of experience. He got he got given the TO3, but I think he's even because he's been involved with field of play and stuff with international over here. As far as I know, he's got a TO4 now. So there's I know Jim Kenny's a TO4.
Who was that you mentioned? I didn't catch the name.
Brian Jackson, the referee.
Brian Jackson, yeah.
Yes, I heard somebody told me that he's a TO4 now. I know he's a TO3 for a while.
So just to clarify the differences. So for some people who may not be aware, so umpiring is the person who sits down usually and turns the score over and calls out the score. You've got an assistant umpire as well. Usually the main umpire calls the score and the assistant umpire turns the numbers if you've got both. Referee is the person who kind of organizes the tournament, does the draw. The organizer, the organizer and the referee together kind of run the tournament. And then you've got a deputy referee and a referee's assistant for bigger tournaments. Now, and then there's a competition manager, which is another thing that people may not know much about. I recently did the level 2 referee course. I haven't finished. This was last year. We haven't actually progressed on going to the next level. We've just done the actual first course. We haven't done any practical or assessment or anything, but hopefully that will come in due course. But we did talk about competition manager, and so my understanding is the competition manager is actually paid. It's a paid role compared to where umpires and referees are just given expenses.
Yeah.
So would you like to just elaborate on the competition? Give us the differences between tournament organizer, referee, and competition manager, because it's a bit of a grey area for most people.
Okay, so quite simply, the referee usually does the draw on the schedule. And creates all the paperwork and everything, and they're also in charge of the umpires. Some referees will get the umpires. Most of the time, it's the organizer. But usually there's a bit of collaboration between the organizer and the referee on the umpires. Not always, but sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. They'll obviously do a briefing for the umpires for when they have the umpires briefing, basically just sort of let the umpires know, okay, this is how we want things doing, blah blah blah, and just give them a bit of information about the tournament. So the organizer. What the organizer does is basically they obviously sort of help put it all together, really. So it's obviously usually the organizer will get the umpires. They'll also get the referee team. They'll also obviously put the venue, the hotels if required. They'll pay all the expenses and stuff like that. And they'll basically kind of man the place on the day. So like they'll obviously make sure there's catering there. All the different things involved that you need to run a tournament. They'll make sure that everything's in place. And that also means people looking after field of play, umpires, managers, stuff like that. Volunteers, to set up the hall in good time. Usually the evening before, and obviously packing it away at the end. Having people around, things like for presentations or like any spillages or anything needs cleaning up, stuff like that. That's the main role of the organizer. As a competition manager, so for example, when I go abroad to a para table tennis tournament, an international one, the competition manager, what I do is I liaise between the organisers, the referee, and the classifiers. So on the para table tennis, we usually have classifiers at events where people go to get their classification. So they bring their documentation, they get assessed and whatever, and then they get given their classification. So I liaise between those three people. So should a problem come up, it comes to me, and it's my job to work with them to help sort it out. The last sort of few tournaments I've been to, I've been very lucky that there's been very little issues, because the people involved are very good at what they do. I mean, like the Polish organisers, excellent. Very rare I need to ask them to do something because they're already on with it, or like you have it's all about having a very good collaboration between the whole team, the referees, the organisers, and everybody working together to make sure you deliver a good event. That's the key thing. So as a competition manager, I'm there representing the International Table Tennis Federation when I'm abroad.
So what? Tell us just a quick rundown of the duties of the competition manager. Maybe you've already said that and I missed it, but
yes. Well, I mean, yes. So the but basically the competition manager is like technically the boss of the tournament. Sometimes the duties can slightly vary. For example, on the like things like your pro tours and your like your challenge tournaments and stuff like that. Quite often the competition manager will actually do the draw and the schedule, and then what they'll do is once they've done it all, they'll then and they'll also receive the entries as well. It's all done like electronically, so they'll manage all of that. And quite often, as I say, that they'll generally do the draw and the schedule, and then what they'll do is they'll give it to the referee just to give it a check over, just to make sure they're happy with it. Because at the end of the day, the referee tasks can be delegated, but the referee is still like responsible for it. For the draw.
Competition managers are really only for kind of international events, is that right?
Yes, yeah, and nationals
national events. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, just to kind of finish off this topic because we don't want to run too long. Just kind of the last thing about this would be how can we get more umpires and referees involved? Because obviously, at the moment, as I say, referees and umpires generally aren't paid. I know they're running courses around the country, which is helping. But how do we attract younger people or just older people, whatever, into the area of umpiring and refereeing?
It's not an easy role. It's not an easy thing to get any people volunteering. In all honesty, in anything, because not everyone. I mean, all of us lot, we've all volunteered at various different points. So before you're paid coaches, you would have done it voluntary at the beginning, didn't they? So not everyone has the same sort of approach. We want to give something back to the sport, that's a difficulty. I mean, for many years there wasn't a huge amount of there wasn't really any courses. There wasn't a lot of mentoring and stuff on the go. Over the last definitely more so over the last 5 years, they've had a big push on the court running courses and doing the mentoring and looking after people, because it's not just about what was often happening was people were getting qualified as umpires, and then we never see them on the circuit. Well, that's just pointless. That's no good to anybody. So it's all about getting people qualified, looking after them, and make sure they're getting educated and feeling valued, and giving the time, so that you retain them, so they don't just disappear.
So you need mentorship. I probably suggest maybe making the courses. Are the courses free? I can't remember. Make them free.
No, they're not free.
No. Yeah, so maybe making them free would attract people, but I don't know. Getting more younger people in. I mean,
it's funny. Yeah, I mean, as regards to getting the younger ones in, a good example, a perfect example. I'm sure Vidal's seen loads of them down there. At the Grantham Chandler's Table Tennis Club, they've got loads of young umpires, yeah, and that's probably the only club in the country that has loads.
I actually, when I was at Greenhouse last year, got 16 of them put through the umpiring course, so then we could use them at the 4-star. So we've got like 16 of them start the course. I think only about 6 of them passed the first stage anyway. But the main problem is as you say, like getting them to do more. I think every club in England should have their younger players do the umpiring courses anyway. So then it makes travelling to tournaments so much easier. I mean, at a junior 4-star, for me to run the Greenhouse 4-star like 2 years ago, we needed 22 umpires for a 4-star, but yet at a Grand Prix you only need 4. You know, it was crazy. So so the cost of umpires was so ridiculous. It cost like $3,500, $4,000 by the time you spent all the money on hotels and paying the umpires food and drinks for like a whole weekend. So we decided to do it all in house. You know, it just got ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as I say, this is one of the reasons why you don't see many 4-stars is because that it's a very tough budget. And as I say, the umpires are the ones that basically eat all the budget. Because of the travel expenses.
And if any of the umpires say, "Well, I don't want to travel down to London to do that," you know, you can't run your tournament because you won't have enough umpires.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty. I mean, like with a 4-star, the regulation is that every single match in that tournament has to be done by a qualified umpire. Whereas with the Grand Prix, because their class is like a 3-star, it's just like sort of the later rounds. You see, so that's how they get around that. But say the umpires,
classification system on the tournaments and to make it more equal.
Yes, so quite simply regarding getting younger umpires involved, obviously it's very hard. I'm sure you can appreciate it's very hard for the association to go out there and find the younger people. It needs to be done at club level because they're the ones that have got all the youngsters there. So Vidal did a great job with Greenhouse. He got loads of umpires involved there. Grantham Club as well, and again it works because they've got their umpires in house. So therefore, when they run their 4-star, when they run their 2-stars, they've got plenty of umpires just up the road. Their expenses are heavily reduced, and it works, you know. And bit by bit, you also see some of those, you know, maybe to progress to other things. So I know that some of the Grantham umpires go up to the tournaments that Brian Jackson has up at Blackpool, you know, or they might do a bit of British League and stuff like that, you know. And that's where it all starts, you know. We don't expect every single umpire qualified to progress to international, but you know what, if we can get some that progress, then it's all good, you know.
Good.
It works.
Okay, so and in my club, I know I got players to do the junior umpire award and got them all through it and so on. But I mean, even if 1 or 2 of them goes on to be a county umpire or even further, then that's a start. But let's move on to our third topic, which is the topic of training at Grantham College, and also a bit about Vidal's role as the coach there, as the head coach there. So Vidal, would you like to kind of give us a bit of a rundown of what the players go through when they're at the Grantham College, and also a bit more about your role and so on?
Yeah, well, Grantham Table Tennis Academy is obviously based at Grantham College, so the students there have the opportunity to play on average between sort of like 20 to 25 hours a week whilst still studying. So that involves in sort of like morning sessions before their college day starts. During the day, then we hold one-to-ones in our one-to-one hall. Sometimes it'd be 1 to 2 with a coach. They work on like a rotation system, so the opportunity is to try and get at least 2 one-to-ones a week. And then we have evening sessions every evening of the week as well, which are generally between 2.5 to 3 hours long. So the hours soon sort of like add up, and it's all about trying to get that quality amount of hours, you know. At Grantham, we're quite lucky because it seems to be sort of like the hub for England, that when you are a decent level player and you hit sort of like 16 and leave school, we tend to get a lot of the best players in the country try to come to the academy, so then they all get to practice together and try to make the England squad as strong as possible.
That was about 15 to 20 hours a week, did you say, per person of training?
But anywhere, I would say between 18 and 25 hours a week, yeah, depending.
Right. Very good, yeah. And so they obviously have to, so they kind of pay a fee for that. How much is the fee, are you able to say?
Well, actually, no, it's basically based because you're a student, so you apply to the college, so then the only cost is sort of like your accommodation costs to live
they
on
don't pay
site
for
those players. That's actually part of the college. You know, so there is.
Is it a state kind of school or college, or is it private, or how does that work?
No, it's state, so it's everything out in the open, and anybody can apply.
And like, do you need to be a certain age or a certain standard of table tennis? Is there a maximum age?
No, well, we've actually got sort of like 2 programs running alongside. So the actual college itself would be when you leave and you've done your GCSE, so sort of like that 16 years old, you come and then hopefully get onto either a 1-year course or 2-year course. You can stay probably from 16 up until probably I would say about 22, 23, because at the college we actually run the first 2 years of university as well. So you can do your HNC and HND there as well. So you can stay and do your first 2 years of university before transferring to do your last year somewhere else. So we're very capable of that. So you can actually have a big stint. And the second program, we actually have our Charles Reed program, which is our Charles Reed Academy, which is actually a secondary school that's not so far away from the college. So we have students that go there. That's some of the top younger ones in the country. And then the coaches travel there and then do sessions at their school around about 7 hours a week as well. And then those students then come across to do all the evening sessions at the college as well, that get to play with the slightly older players as well.
So the older ones are presumably moving away, some of them at least, are moving away from home, living on their own, looking after themselves. And how about the younger ones?
The younger ones, they will then stay in sort of like, at the moment, they're all staying in one house, living together. And then their food gets provided for them as well, and there's obviously a cost for that sort of program.
But just the kids on their own in a place, or is there an adult?
No. There's a carer as well with them. They're in the house all the time.
That's the bedlam.
Yeah.
How many kids are involved in that house? You say?
Currently, at the moment, there's 4.
4.
But there was at one point there was 7.
And are there other people that live locally that just live at home and go to that are involved in the table tennis program?
Not at the cadet level, no, there isn't. There used to be, but there isn't currently at the moment.
And how about in the older level? Are there local players?
Yeah, in the older level, there's a couple of older kids that would have gone to sort of like the Grantham Mears Club or of that level that then they join the college, and then you apply to join the table tennis academy, and then they come alongside. And outside that, we still have sort of like, we allow some players sort of like Joe comes across sort of like when he's back in England, and then they will stay at the accommodation and then train as well with us.
Joe you didn't go to Grantham College itself, did you, Joe?
No, it was an option, but I moved abroad instead of going to college.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think I asked earlier, is there like a minimum level of standard of player to get into Grantham for your course?
I wouldn't say there is a minimal level, but I would say that the minimum level is actually quite high, because it's generally only the players that really actually have an expectation of wanting to become a good player that are then are willing to put that commitment in to be training sort of like 20, 25 hours a week as well.
But they might maybe have just started a year ago and they've improved out of sight, but they're not like massively great standard yet, but they're really, really keen to put the hours in. Are those kind of players still acceptable?
I would say, for me, I'm open to anybody applying, and once what happens is you apply for the college, and then you apply for the table tennis academy, and then those players that apply, they get invited across to come and join in a training session. And then if they're of that level that can practice with anybody in the hall, then that's absolutely fine. That's not an issue at all.
Presumably you've got maximum numbers, you've got a limit on how many you can take. I mean, or are you already up to that limit if you've got spaces? Or
no, I don't actually think we have got a current limit, to be honest. I think we could probably cater for around about 34 to 36. We're currently at about 26 to 28 sort of players that come across.
So you haven't turned people away?
So it's just more
so
about
far?
No.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds like why are there not so many people? It sounds like it's a great situation.
Yeah, I think for a lot of players it is that choice whether I want to move away and commit to table tennis in that, I mean, Joe's made that commitment that, right, okay, Grantham was an option, and the other option for me was to go abroad. and for him, his better option was to go abroad at that time. So I think it's a fact that other people will probably go through at that stage. And I mean, if you look at some of the players that actually attended Grantham, it's a lot in the country at the moment, that have gone there. I think there's probably about 250 players along that have come through the whole Grantham system.
It's kind of a middle ground between going abroad, isn't it? You're moving away from home.
I would say that.
Yeah.
I think people need to look at Grantham as that as well, because those players who want to go abroad, I mean, truthfully honest, the first year is horrible. So to be able to do it in England, you live there by yourself, you have to look after yourself, and you're still in England. I think for me, looking back at it, I probably should have done that first year to see if I was ready to go abroad. So a stepping stone, it's a good stepping stone as well, because everyone's been through there. Matt Lee, Tom Jarvis, Joe Clark, Sam Chesterman's there now, Luke Miller's there, Callum Evans, Jordan Wykes. A lot of top players have come from that system.
Yeah, sounds really good. And how many coaches are there, not including yourself? So there's you and how many others?
3.
There's you and 3 others, so 4 in total. Is it Natalie Green is one of them?
Yeah, Mate, and you've got Harry White. Harry White is a specialised SAQ coach, so that's speed, agility, and quickness coach. So he's sort of like the head. He runs all our fitness.
So presumably he's not there during the table tennis part of it. He's just there for the fitness.
Yeah, he's actually a qualified table tennis coach as well. So he works with some of the players as well. So he's a qualified coach, but his specialised area is the fitness. So his main job is the fitness side of it. So he will take players, take video footage of how they run, how they move, analyze that, and sort of like break that down, and then devise exercises specific for each player based on their movement capabilities.
So you have one-to-one sessions, you have group sessions. For the group sessions, is everybody in the hall at the same time, or different sessions?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be down to the actual students of themselves. We find that sort of like, even though there's training every 5 evenings a week, most players will probably play 4 times a week. Some of them will play the 5. It just depends on how their bodies are caping. We advise them to actually rest if they need to rest. Sometimes they might not play fully. They might play for 2 hours in a session, then sit out. Just depends on their individual bodies and how they react to that.
And is that similar with the younger group, Charles Reid Academy?
Yeah, that's exactly the same with them as well.
Right. Okay. So have you got any other comments or questions from the other two, Joe or Dave, about the kids training sessions at Grantham before we move on to his Vidal's role as a coach?
Just like in general, how many international players do you get questioning, like asking about Grantham?
Well, currently I think we've got 7 internationals and then 2 para players as well. So you've got national team players from England, Scotland, and Wales. We've had sort of like players come from abroad in the past from France and Germany as well. Yeah. So, I mean, Joe's been there himself. He's seen them. We've got a lot of decent players that have come through, and it just helps that everybody around that level, they're all quite similar sort of levels as well. So the training and aspect of it, it means that you can go on with generally everybody in the hall and still have a good training session. You don't feel like you're playing up or you're playing down. You're playing within that same sort of aspect the majority of the time.
Okay. Yeah. Dave, we're going to say something?
I was just curious. So obviously, Vidal, you've been coaching for many years. You've worked with many different coaches, and as we all know, that when you work with others, you learn more, learn lots of good things, and it gives you more experience. What I was just curious of is, since you've recently joined Grantham, have you made many changes since you've been there?
I wouldn't say, to be honest. What a lot of people probably don't realise is I've actually been working at Grantham for about 2.5 years before that. So I was there sort of like part-time, working sort of like 1 day or 2 days a week, still within that whole system, running one-to-ones and then group sessions myself. So it was only the beginning of this season I didn't actually start with Grantham. Then when the job opportunity came to be head coach there, I applied and obviously got the role. I think the system's good enough. It didn't really need any changes. I mean, just minimal things about how we look at some stuff, just between coaches, making sure that sort of like we have a good ethos and making sure we're trying to help create a culture within the club that everybody is on that same sort of level, you know, like a club culture. That's the real thing that I would like to get going there, you know. And I've been looking at sort of like the structure of our teams as well, and maybe not just having teams at Junior British League in the Prem, but actually filtering that down to like all the divisions and also Senior British League teams as well, because Grantham in the past hasn't had that, and this will be the first season moving forward that we will have teams in Senior British League and probably in the lower divisions of JBL as well, so people can see that, right, oh, it's not just the best players in the country, we actually have players of sort of like that next step down that will achieve to be the best players in the country in a couple of years' time, but we also have that platform for them to actually play on a more regular basis under the Grantham logo and not just outsourced to other clubs that's been done in the past.
Okay, so Vidal, give us a bit of a kind of a rundown of your roles, how many hours you do, preparation, you know, as a coach yourself.
Oh, as a coach myself, I mean, I'm employed to do, most people's contract is like a 37.5-hour a week contract, but you end up doing, you know, in excess of sort of like 40, 50, 60, 70 hours in a week, you know, and it's all just for the students' benefits, really. You get in an hour before sessions happen, you deliver your one-to-one, you have minimal breaks, because then you want to get back on the table and do more, you know, and we help with structure of like the students' tournament structures at the beginning of the year and sort of like lay out a plan with the student of what tournaments they're going to attend and what does that mean, and, you know, helping them in with teams into Europe as well as in England. You know, and it's just a lot of one-to-one and a lot of group sessions, you know.
So,
it's no more than what...
So kind of how much of that time is actual on the table coaching and how much of it is just kind of admin or preparation?
I wouldn't say the admin more or less gets done at the beginning of the year, you know, within the first couple of weeks of the year. And then the rest of the time is just on the table, you know, unless you're writing lesson plans for you generally might write a lesson plan or have an idea in your head if you don't have a lesson plan. So then what you want to achieve by the end of this week, and then you sort of like structure your week accordingly, you know, to then move forward.
So do you have written lesson plans, and do you do written evaluations after sessions, or how does that work?
Personally, actually, I generally write some evaluations afterwards. I don't do many lesson plans, simply because I've been coaching so long now that you kind of already know what you want out of stuff in your head. And you look at each player, like I can walk around the hall and I know exactly what each individual player needs and wants, and have that relationship with them. So I don't see if I write a lesson plan, it might not cover everything that I need to cover. So you got to try and adapt things on the go anyway. So, you know, a lot of it is off the top of your head, and you know your plan of what you want to achieve.
Here's a question. If you're running, say, a 2-hour group session, how much time would you devote to a physical warm-up and a cool down at the end?
10-15 minutes at the start and 10-15 minutes at the end. No?
Okay. And I think that is appropriate. For me, I mean, I run coaching sessions. I'm not coaching the same level of players as you're coaching. They're players who've been playing a year to 6 months. You just play 2 hours a week. So what are your opinions on, do you still need to do the same amount of, warm up and cool down, or is it because you're only
ideally, yes. But I mean, when I was at Greenhouse and you're working with sort of like that next sort of like tier down, it's trying to install in the students that, right, you need to warm up. So try and put the emphasis on them to actually get to your sessions 15-20 minutes early and actually do their own warm-ups. So then you're actually ready to play. When your session starts at 2 o'clock, you're ready to play at 2 o'clock because they've already initially done their warm-up. And then if anybody isn't, they can sit at the side and do their own warm-up whilst you get your session started.
That's not a bad idea, because if you're only seeing somebody for 2 hours a week and you're spending
you want time on the table.
Yeah,
No?
15 minutes at the beginning and 15 minutes. You only got an hour and a half. Then you got a break in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, we generally don't. The only time you break is to fill up your water bottle.
Yeah.
So in the 2 hour session, you don't. These are kids. They shouldn't need breaks.
My players, if they don't have a 5 to 10 minute break in the middle, they'll go on strike.
Oh, you've got to push them. You got to push them.
Some of them, the break is what they come for.
No, and don't let them go on their phones during breaks as well.
Don't have what?
Don't let them go on their phones during their breaks either.
Oh, they always go on their phones.
No, can't do that.
Big Vidal one. I've experienced that.
Yeah, don't do that.
I think I have exhausted all of my questions. Anybody else? Any more comments? Final comments before we finish the show?
I just want to say at Grantham, I think what I really respect is that Vidal could walk into the hall and all players could be there and he could literally point at every single player and tell you their weakness and what they need to work on. And a lot of people don't understand that that's a lot of kids to work with. There's a lot of pressure for the Grantham coaches, but yet every day they put their time into each single player. And when it's a group session, they don't just focus on one person. They've got to focus on 38, and they can do that. And the amount of respect that I have for that and the passion that they have for these players as well is incredible. For me, this is the perfect place to go and train when I come home.
So, Vito, one more question, actually.
Yeah,
thanks for that, Joe. One more question. Are you looking to have more players next season? Are you happy if you have more applications, or are you kind of happy with the numbers you've got? Or
yeah, I mean, we're always happy to have more applications. I mean, the only thing with more applications, it just means that you have more strength in depth, more opportunities to help that cream rise to the top. You need that difference in levels as well as the ability to help push people. So we're in a very good place right now. Don't get me wrong. We're in a very, very strong place going into next season. But if people want to apply because they haven't thought about it before or anything like that, and I know in times like this now, there's no clubs are open and start of the season, people are going to be down on hours. And if you go to sort of like your local club and you might only access 4 to 6 hours a week, and you haven't even got that for like the last 5 months, coming straight to somewhere like Grantham and getting into hitting the start of the season at 20 to 25 hours a week, it's a big jump, and you've got to be ready to take that, and that will help push you on to that extra bit.
Okay, brilliant. It's been a great show today, and thanks to my 3 guests. And I'll be back next week, hopefully, with 3 new guests. I've got Ellie Baratti, Andy Wilkinson, and Will Michelle, and Gavin Maguire. So it should be an interesting show. But thanks again, everybody, and we'll leave it there. Bye now.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rory. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, David.